Hi there, this is Elise Bennin, your marketing mentor. And this is the podcast for you if and only if you are ready to leave the feast or famine syndrome behind, and I mean for good. When you're self-employed or a freelance creative professional or a solopreneur, whatever you choose to call yourself, the thing is, your business is you. It's not necessarily about you, but it must reflect you. But what does that mean exactly? Well, that's the topic today in my conversation with Megginson of Deeply Rested, who has evolved her business over the years into one that not only reflects her main purpose, but also seeks to help business owners do that too. That's the heart of today's episode. So listen and learn. Hello, Megan. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Please introduce yourself.
So I'm Megginson. I'm the founder of Deeply Rested, where we do holistic, nature-based, anti-capitalist business coaching for mission-driven entrepreneurs.
Wow, interesting. So unpack that, as they say, and maybe give us a little background and evolution of your business, how long you've been in business and where it started and how you got here.
Okay. Well, I was a psychotherapist in my first career. I specialized in couples and sex therapy, and I did that work for a little over 10 years. Loved it. Was such an amazing honor to do that work with my clients. But something was happening for me as I got into year, let's say 7 or 8 of being a therapist. I could just feel a little nudge, a little intuitive nudge that it was time to take all of the skills that I had earned, that I had cultivated within myself and turn them in a different direction and pivot to serving business owners, change makers, people who were being in service to others. So I spent a couple of years exploring what that might look like. How could I take my skills as a therapist, combine them with the skills I had created as a business owner, and do something different, do something in service of business owners. I spent a couple of years doing more strategic business coaching, sort of traditional business coaching, if you will. But there was something about that never quite resonated for me. It didn't sit quite right. I could feel that my purpose here isn't to help people craft their business strategies, but it is to serve people who are business owners. So over the course of years of personal contemplation and experimentation, I developed this more integrative approach to working with business owners that really weaves together psychology, spirituality, our emotions with the practical elements of creating businesses that do good work in the world, but also serve our lives in really deep and meaningful ways.
Sounds very interesting. And I do want to talk a little bit more about what you're focused on now. But first, as I'm listening, I'm thinking about several of the people that I work with, especially people who are near the beginning of their journey as business owners. And I find that they often just want to know what it is and have trouble really embracing or even living into the uncertainty and the experimentation, as you mentioned it also. And so I'm curious what that process is like for you or has been like for you.
And when you say they just want to know, I'm assuming you mean they just want to know what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. And, as you have described, a business evolves over time, and I've never actually seen a business become the thing the person thought it was going to become.
Right.
And it has its own life. And if you listen to the market and if you listen to the intuition, as you also described it, that
Mm-hmm.
take it where it needs to go. But it's hard
Mm-hmm.
to do that if you aren't sure where
Right.
it's going to go. And so it's just like this living in uncertainty in general, but especially
Mm-hmm.
when you're supposed to be running a business, but you don't really know what you're doing.
Yes. Yes. Oh, absolutely, Elise. That resonates so deeply. I think to answer this question, we have to talk for a second about this larger system of capitalism that we are operating inside of. Capitalism is an economic system that is really based on this idea that our businesses exist separate from nature, right? Separate from who we are as people. And when we're creating businesses that are really based on this capitalistic system that is so disconnected from the human experience, it is easy to say, oh, I can just snap my fingers and have a complete idea that I can just, bring into the world and bam, here's the machine I want to make. Here's the blueprint, make the machine. It's going to serve its function, for the rest of time. But that really is ignoring this deeper truth that our businesses, especially as solopreneurs or service providers, our businesses are extensions of who we are as people. So we do have to take a big step back and say, okay, well, what is my philosophy about life? What do I believe about being a person on the planet, having a life? What's my purpose? What's the purpose of life? It gets very existential, but I find that the more existential you get, the happier you become as a business owner because you can really start to treat your business as an extension of your life instead of as this externalized project that you're, trying to complete so you can get an A+ and a high five.
And
When
do
you
right.
and do it right, right? Do it right and just grow the sort of positive upward trajectory from now until you die. That's sort of what we're conditioned to believe is the right way to live life. So for me, I have just found so much more satisfaction and depth in slowing that process down and really looking at my business as an extension of myself. So where am I on my personal journey, my personal growth journey, my personal healing journey? Where am I? What am I going through? What am I learning? What am I doing? And how can my business work in tandem, work in parallel with me as a person? And the more I do that, the more I treat my business as my partner instead of, some externalized project, the happier I feel and the more nuanced my journey becomes. Does that make sense?
It does. And it sounds awesome. And so I imagine that's also part of what your focus is now, but be specific and tell us
Mm-hmm.
where is your business now? Where is it going and why?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Well, let me just spell this out in a couple of phases here. As a therapist, when I was, first moving into private practice, I was really focused on just seeing one-on-one therapy clients. It was just me and my office and my clients. At some point, I decided to expand into a group practice. So I decided to scale my therapy business where I hired more therapists and created a team. In this business and the holistic business coaching practice, the trajectory has been somewhat similar in that I started my work just doing one-on-one coaching and then got to the point where I felt really hungry to scale, hungry to grow my message and my impact and start to work with people in more group capacities. So I don't have any intention in this business of hiring revenue generating employees. That's what I did with the therapy center. And I discovered that it wasn't my favorite way to show up as a business owner. But where I am now, I'm really curious about finding ways to expand the impact of my work without diluting the potency of the work or the personalization of the work. So we're looking at, we started a podcast last fall as an example, as a way to share this message with more people for free. We're looking at doing more in-person retreats, starting a seasonal planning membership. So we're getting really curious about how can we create spaces that can accommodate more people, both virtually and online, to do this work together in a deep and personal way.
And when you say we, I'm curious, who is on your team or what kind of team do you have?
Yeah, great question. I always say we, and people are like, "Do you have a mouse in your pocket?" It's like my team is such such an important part of my day-to-day life. I forget that not everyone on the planet knows who they are. So thanks for asking.
Mhm.
Right now, we have a full-time team of three. It's me, my husband, and our business manager, whose name is Nancy, and she is truly, truly incredible. So we're all kind of wearing different hats, obviously, within the business, but we're organized around a shared set of anti-capitalist values. So we are three very mission-driven people who are able to bring different areas of expertise into this business so that we can really crack the code on doing business sustainably, holistically, in a different way than, the traditional capitalist model that we've all been taught.
Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned before, I do talk a lot about listening to the market and letting the market guide you. Also, I'm curious how you think about that in your own business.
Yeah, it's a really good question. In my business, I want to listen to myself more than I listen to the market. And this was really born from my experience as a business owner, where, let me say this succinctly. Since I was old enough to talk, I've been what many would call a perfectionistic people pleaser. Probably similar to many people listening, many small business owners. And because I was so good at being a perfectionistic people pleaser, I found that when I became an entrepreneur, it was really easy for me to listen to what everyone else wanted or said they wanted, and to kind of look around at what other people were doing or what seemed to be working. And that trapped me in this place where I was really creating offerings and coming up with ideas that weren't coming from deep inside of myself. They weren't coming from my own intuition, my own heart, my own wisdom. So there was a big learning curve for me as an entrepreneur where I had to step away from the voices of everyone else and really learn, how do I listen to myself? And how do I trust myself to know what the right next step is in my business? Now, I did spend some time going too far in that direction where I was listening to myself and not balancing it with listening to my audience and to the market. So what we talk about now in my company, Deeply Rested, we talk about like a 1-2 punch, or like the first thing that we want to do is really tune out the noise of the external world and really listen deeply to ourselves. What do we feel is the right thing to do, to offer, to market, et cetera? And once we come up with a little menu of ideas that we feel really aligned with and attached to, then we're going to pivot outwards and start, for us, listening to the market, which in our world really means listening to our audience and seeing with our audience, what are people drawn to? Which of these ideas we've come up with do people say like, yes, absolutely, I'm willing to do that and pay for that right now? And what do people maybe lean away from or say, this actually isn't quite what I need right now? So we like to find a balance between what we think of as listening to ourselves and listening to our audience.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you that it is about the balance for sure. And I can see the balance in your business also, because it seems to me, if you call it Deeply Rested, it's built around a pain point. So share a bit the thinking behind that, if you would.
Yeah, the thinking there is just, well, taking it a step back. When I first started business coaching, I'm going like way back in the memory bank now. When I first started business coaching, I was leading with a more pleasure-oriented approach, future-oriented marketing and messaging. Because I think as a therapist, I was feeling a little burnt out on talking about hard stuff all the time. I was like, I don't want to talk about burnout. I don't want to talk about drama. I don't want to talk about struggle. Like I've been, doing that day in and day out for so long. Like I want to just like lean into things that feel positive and hopeful and optimistic. But I was finding that the people I wanted to work with and the way in which I wanted to work with them, that messaging, it didn't land. It wasn't actually a reflection of what they were experiencing and what they needed to hear, to have reflected and to hear validated right now. So I really just started getting more honest with myself, really looking at what are the parts of me that are resisting focusing my messaging around pain points. There was also a part of me that was really scared and hesitant of manipulating and exploiting people's pain points, because I saw that happen a lot as a therapist and just, like a human who lives inside of capitalism. So I didn't want to do that. Yeah, it was all of these factors that made me resist having a business that revolved around a pain point for a long time. But the more honest I got with myself and with the people I was working with, the easier it was for me to see, no, the people I'm working with, they are hurting. And the work that I'm doing is emotional work. It is personal work. So it makes sense for us to really lean into this messaging around being burnt out, being overwhelmed, feeling like you love your work, but you just can't imagine doing it like this for the long term. That really helps us connect to the people who need our work right now.
Mm-hmm. For some reason, I'm also thinking about the difference between a coach and a therapist. I don't know what that difference is. I imagine you do, or you've defined it for yourself in your own evolution and transition, because often I find that people think they need a coach because it's very trendy right now to want a coach and to have a coach, or all different kinds of coaches. But sometimes the problems seem to be deeper, and a coaching is not enough. So I'm curious how you think about that.
Yeah. Well, we could spend a whole 3 hours talking about this. This
No
is like
doubt.
a very hot topic. And it's a very hot topic in the therapy field right now, right? Because, fun fact, therapists ethically aren't actually allowed to do coaching. And that's a long, I'm oversimplifying a very complicated conversation that also differs state to state, just to make it even more complex.
Right.
But in general, the therapy field really wants to protect therapy clients from working with people who aren't qualified to be therapists. So yeah, Elise, this is a complicated conversation, but I would say that the main difference between therapy and coaching is that when you're with a therapist, you, first of all, are working with someone who has years of training and thousands of hours of supervision, and learning how to dive deep into your psyche, your past, your trauma history, your emotions, and knows how to meet you in a way that isn't going to make it all worse. Right? A therapist, hopefully, is trauma informed and understands how to talk to you about the things that you're really struggling with in a way that's going to help you heal those struggles and then move forward in your life. Whereas many coaches, their approach is more, we're starting from where you are today and we're going forward. Whereas a therapist is going to say, we're starting from where you are today. First, we're going to go backwards. We're going to go backwards in time, and then we'll go forwards in time when you're ready. I would also say a distinction is that a therapist is the person you want to work with if you're really struggling with a mental health diagnosis, right? If you have clinical depression or generalized anxiety or an unprocessed trauma history or OCD or ADHD or any of these things, you're going to want to work with someone who really has the training and supervision to help support you in overcoming those struggles. Whereas most coaches don't. They don't have the background and the training to know how to work with those diagnoses effectively. But all of that being said, there are some really phenomenal coaches out there who have gone above and beyond to get trained in lots of different ways so that they can work with their clients more holistically. And just because something isn't therapy doesn't mean that it's not therapeutic. So that's how I think about my work as a holistic business coach now. It's like, I'm not your therapist. First of all, I'm not on call for you, right? If you're struggling, like I have really clear boundaries. I'm not here to work with you on your mental health diagnosis. If I'm working with a client and it's clear to me there's an underlying mental health challenge, I'm going to refer you to see a therapist, and we can work together at the same time, but that's not the work that I want to be doing anymore. So I am approaching this more from a coaching angle. And that work, the work that we do together, it is deep, it is meaningful, it is going to feel therapeutic without the Western connotation of what all is included when you go to work with a therapist. Is any of that resonating for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think that all makes sense. And, one has to just be careful choosing who to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, you have to be an informed consumer for sure.
And go back to trusting your intuition.
Yes. Yeah.
Also. All right, let's talk about marketing again, because I want to hear a little bit about the marketing tools that you've used,
Sure.
whether it was as a therapist or promoting the group practice, or now with the new iteration of your business. I'm curious, what have you tried and what has worked, especially, or maybe even what hasn't worked?
I would say that when my business, both my therapy business and my coaching business, were focused on working with one-on-one clients, when I was a solopreneur, and I needed I was really comfortable at that like 10K a month revenue marker. The sweet spot for me in those seasons was just good old fashioned one-on-one networking, relationship building. That never failed me. Just being a relationally oriented person in the world, like really creating a referral network of people I truly cared about and who in return truly cared about me. I was never a fan. There was a season when I was learning about all of this where I went to BNI groups. What is that called? Business Networking?
Business Networking International.
International, yes. Oh my God, I hated it so much, Elise. I was like,
why?
This is terrible for me. It just felt to me, for the ones that I visited, so insincere. Like I'm a therapist at my core. I'm a people person. Superficial relationships, like I'm not interested. I need depth. I need intimacy. I need genuine connections. And the groups that I visited that didn't feel that way, where it felt more exploitative. It's just like, what can we, extractive, perhaps is a better way to say it. The relationships felt extractive. What can you take from me and what can I take from you? I wasn't into that. So I really gravitated to more one-on-one relationship building and getting systematic about it. I created spreadsheets for myself and like, okay, let me think. I want to build relationships with, when I was a therapist, other therapists, with doctors, with divorce attorneys, with pelvic floor PTs. I had all of these categories of referral sources that I wanted to develop relationships with. And then I just put in the time and the energy, even as an introvert, to building really meaningful relationships that sustained me in business for a very long time. Let me
just ask you a question there before you go on, because actually in my Simplest Marketing Plan program today, we had a meeting and the question that came up was from someone who wants to build these kinds of relationships. And she was struggling with, what is my ask? Because I don't know that I necessarily can refer back to some of these people or businesses. And so why would they want to refer to me? And so I'm curious if you can articulate like what exactly is or was or could be the ask in that kind of relationship.
Well, I think for me, the ask is secondary to the relationship. So I was always more interested at first in getting to know, divorce attorney is coming to mind. So as a couples therapist, for example, I often wasn't referring my clients. If things were going well, I wouldn't need to refer them to a divorce attorney. But often divorce attorneys would refer couples who were separating to me because they just, couldn't communicate. So this was one of those dynamics like you're describing where I knew that divorce lawyers, family lawyers would be great referral sources for me, but not really in exchange. And they're busy. I think that's the other thing. Like, we're all busy. Nobody has time just to like go on a dozen coffee dates every week. I would always step into those relationships with the spirit of, we're both doing work in our community. How can we support each other as entrepreneurs in our community? And how can we support each other as people who are doing similar types of work? So I would lead for several conversations often with just like, who are you? And why are you doing this work? And what's happening in your life? And what are you struggling with? And what's going well for you? Let me really put the energy into developing an actual relationship. And then I will start sharing asks if it feels aligned, if it feels right. So that can't be understated, because for me, there's nothing more annoying than getting invited like into a networking date and feeling like the person asks me two questions and then immediately starts telling me like, oh, well, here's how you can support me. I'm like,
Right.
take me to dinner first. Like we haven't even, or like, I don't even like know how to spell your name yet.
Yes.
So that felt really important to me. And then I find, I'm curious what you think about this, Elise, but I find that when I really make the time to build genuine relationships, usually the person I'm connecting with is going to ask me, how can I support you?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't actually have to make an ask because I'm invited to share. How can I support you? And then it creates this organic opening to say, well, I would love to help you by supporting these kind of clients that you're struggling to work with. So it becomes organically really symbiotic, right? How can I support you by supporting your clients? There's no greater gift to me as a business owner than having a wonderful referral to give to you, my client. So even if you never, so let's say, Elise, you're saying to me, oh, I really need a physical therapist. You're my therapy client. And I would say, oh my gosh, great. I know the best physical therapist. You're going to love her. But that physical therapist never really has reason to refer back to me. I don't really care, because her service to me was that I was able to make a good connection for you as my client. And you are then going to remember me and appreciate me and have gratitude for me making that connection for you. So then you might go and tell your friend about me as your therapist because we had such a positive working relationship together.
Mm-hmm.
I just really believe in the power of the mycelium network, right? That we are all connected to each other. And if we step into these relationships with a genuine desire to connect and be of service, and of course, we're being clear about how we can support, and we're offering to lend a helping hand, that like we're all taken care of.
Amen, sister.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And
I'm stretching my brain right now. I'm like, why am I using these therapy metaphors? I think because we were talking about therapy earlier,
yes.
but it's been like many years since I did this work. So I should switch my examples to
no, that's okay.
more easily accessible information for my brain.
But I think that those examples are relevant to anyone really offering a service that is intangible, essentially, because that's all there is you and your effort and your caring and your curiosity. Yes. So I think it's relevant.
Thank you. It is relevant. And here, it just occurred to me, like, here's the actual short answer to your client's question, or how I would answer that question. If someone says, I don't really have anything to offer the other person in terms of referrals, so how do I make the ask? To me, I hear that you aren't really understanding the value of your relationship for that person. That it's not just about the ask, that by being in relationship with this referral source, you are giving something to them. You're giving yourself to them. You're giving your support to them, human to human. So maybe you're not supporting them with referrals, but you're supporting them with your presence, with your attention, with your care. And that shouldn't be understated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So, okay, I derailed you from talking about the marketing tools. So keep going. And then you said.
And then, okay, so yes, I just wanted to emphasize the power of relationship building. Yes. That is the foundation of my marketing always.
Yes.
As I started to scale my group practice, hiring more therapists, we did get to the point where my beautiful relationship network was not large enough to supply the number of referrals that we needed for a larger therapy practice. So we tried a lot of things as a brick and mortar local business. We tried social media, which really wasn't that effective for us. And we finally landed on Google Ads. So for that business, Google Ads is our bread and butter to this day.
Mm-hmm.
So the larger the therapy practice scales, the more we scale our Google Ad campaign, and that seems to work really effectively.
Excellent.
Yeah, love that. And I think that's true for lots of geographically confined service-based businesses.
Yes. And actually, I'm thinking also, I don't know too much about Google Ads at all. And I tend not to recommend them. The 3 tools that I recommend in the Simplest Marketing Plan include networking, strategic
Yeah.
networking, outreach, direct
Mm-hmm.
outreach, targeted outreach, and high quality content marketing. And advertising
Yeah.
doesn't really come into it. But I know that, for certain types of businesses, Google, whether it's organic Google or a combination of Google Ads and organic, is the only thing that matters.
Yes. And it really was, there was a threshold, at least, where, and I don't remember exactly what that threshold was now. I'd have to go back and look, but there was this threshold where we tipped over the threshold. Let's say it's when we hired our 5th full-time therapist. So instead of needing 20 new therapy clients a month, now we needed 50 new therapy clients a month to keep all of our providers full. And that jump really necessitated an ad strategy, right? And ads that are targeting people specifically who are Googling, this is what I want. I'm ready for this right now.
Mm-hmm.
That 3-pronged approach that you described, I would say, yes, like that is absolutely what I did when I had a smaller business, when I was more of a solopreneur. And I wouldn't change a thing about it. And when people come to me now and it's just them or maybe them and one service provider, and they're like, oh, I think I need to run Instagram ads or Google ads. I'm like, hold the phone. Please don't do that. Bad idea. Like that's too much. That's, it's like opening up a fire hose when you just want to extinguish like a candle on your desk.
Right.
It's overkill. So yeah, totally agree.
All right. We don't have a lot of time left, but is there any more you want to say about marketing, whether it's what you did do or what you're thinking of doing or what you're trying now?
I'll say, because I'm imagining there are some people listening to this who are following a similar path that I'm on now, right? Where you are looking to scale, not through revenue generating employees, but maybe you're growing a newsletter list and you want to fill group programs or start a membership or something to that effect. You're a thought leader. The marketing strategies that I've used as I've grown this business have been different altogether. I'm really looking at ways, like I said, to grow my newsletter list. So I'm looking at collaborations with other people online. I'm looking at podcast guesting. What are ways that I can get in front of other people's audience like this? Right. This is a great example, right? Here I am talking to you. I am putting myself in front of your audience to help more people learn about me and the work that I'm doing. So this is like a more scalable marketing strategy than going to coffee with someone or posting a blog, because I know for sure that lots and lots of people are going to hear this conversation. I have not used any paid ads in the business that I run today. I might eventually, but I haven't yet. So it has been really fun over time to experiment with all of these different marketing outlets.
All right. My last question is always about the baby step, because I am often known as Baby Steps Benin, because I always just want people to take very small steps and trust that those small steps will get them where they need to be, even if it may not be where they want to be.
Yeah.
But, and I'm not even sure, actually, maybe you have a thought about this, like what the baby step would be in the context of all the different things that we're talking about. Do you have a thought?
I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
Baby step for what type of person? Can we paint a picture here? Because I do think the baby steps going to be different depending on like which of these business paths you're on.
I think going back to the solopreneur and small business context makes the most sense.
Okay, let me take a breath and just see what bubbles to the surface.
And I just maybe point you toward this idea of building a business around a pain point. Because I think that works. I've seen that work.
Yeah.
I've made it work. And even if it feels negative sometimes to people, as it seemed like that was part of the problem that you were trying to avoid. But
yeah.
But if one wanted to take a baby step toward building a business around a pain point.
Okay, I got something.
Tell me.
I'm going to say, I mean, there's like 1,000 baby steps that we could offer up, but I want to offer up maybe something slightly different than other guests on this particular show.
Okay.
And I'm going to offer up that the baby step you can take is really deepening or starting for the first time your own personal work. And what does that mean, your own personal work? Like that means the work that you are doing to really examine your own life, your own well-being, your own happiness. Maybe you're doing that with a therapist, your own therapist, or a spiritual mentor, or a coach who is kind of weaving some of these elements together. But I think that you can try every marketing strategy that exists. They're all going to fall a little bit flat until you personally, in your own heart, in your own body, feel solid and confident and clear about what you're doing and why you're doing it. So if you can do that personal work first, or if you can start down that path, because it never actually ends, the personal work, but if you can create some space, even inside of your business, if you can say, I'm going to let my business pay me to do this personal work. My personal work is part of my business growth strategy. You are going to find that intuitively, you will know with more ease and more clarity which of the many strategies available to you is truly going to be the right next step for you.
I like that, but I want to complement it also with the idea that I can't remember if I mentioned this to you or earlier in the day, but the idea that I think we have to just get used to being uncomfortable also in the uncertainty and not knowing what the why is until it's clear. So I just want to temper what you said with that, like get used to the uncertainty.
Well, I mean, the only reality is uncertainty. So yes, there is no finish line to any of this. If you're going into any personal work or business development, and in my opinion, and you're looking to reach a finish line, you are going to be perpetually disappointed and frustrated.
Okay.
So I totally agree that part of doing personal work, but part of what that allows you to do is to become really comfortable with things like uncertainty and impermanency and non-duality, all of these words that basically mean I am fluid, I am flexible, and I feel safe and clear in this moment, knowing that everything is uncertain and I can't guarantee any specific outcome. So I totally, I'm really glad that you're saying that. And I agree. And I think that if you're not doing personal work as a business owner, you're going to have a really hard time relaxing into that uncertainty that Elise is describing.
Yes, I would agree with that. All right, good. Well, Megan, tell the people where they can find you online.
You can find me at deeplyrested.com. I would love, if you like this conversation or this particular angle, you might enjoy checking out the Deeply Rested podcast. And we also have a really beautiful newsletter and newsletter community. So you can subscribe to the newsletter at deeplyrested.com/newsletter.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Megan. It's been
Thanks, Elise.
Lovely and very calming to talk with you. And I'm sure, we're going to talk again soon. Who knows about what? And hopefully we'll be able to tell people about this when we do that. So,
I can't wait. You're going to hear Elise on the Deeply Rested podcast very soon.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Megan. So the baby step we came up with was a collaboration. Megan suggested starting and or deepening your own personal work to find clarity first. I added that the clarity doesn't always feel so clear or so comfortable, so it's important to get used to that discomfort throughout your evolution. So hope that helps. If you want my help finding actual clients using AI, just check out my new one-on-one AI client finding coaching calls. Or you can just sign up for my quick tips at marketing-mentor.com. Once you're on the site, you'll find lots more resources, including my simplest marketing plan. So enjoy, and I'll see you next time.